So some other big components that you need to look for when somebody's trying to sell you a composting toilet, or you're trying to evaluate if a composting toilet is actually going to be effective, one of them is the leachate. The material, the liquid that's coming off, needs to be recycled back into the pile. 80% of the phosphorus, excess phosphorus and nitrogen that we take in comes out as urine. So if this just runs out into the ground, runs out into the river, it's just lost. You know, like right here, look at this. I mean, excess runs into the river. This river jumps into Flathead Lake. Flathead Lake in the last 10 years has having problems with algae blooms. We've lost these nutrients. These nutrients need to be returned back to our fields for food, but instead they're growing algae. I mean, loss of pristine lakes. So an effective leachate recycle system where it's taking the leachate from the bottom of a composting tank, or probably bottom of gravity, and circulating it back on top. And then that also keeps the pile moist, which helps for composting, and it also recirculates, inoculates the pile with bacteria. And this is what bacteria to start the composting process. An effective unit has a fan. The fan not only removes odor from the facility, but it's also providing oxygen to the compost pile, so you have an aerobic fermentation, not an anaerobic. Think anaerobic, think of a vault toilet and just that smelly mess. You know, if you have a good aerobic environment going on, you don't have the smell. It's kind of, I think, more like, you know, like a barn smell instead of a nasty vault of human feces. Big difference. Another pretty key component to a composting toilet is separation. The stabilized compost needs to be easily removed from the tank while not having to deal with the raw material. And, you know, it could be in many different ways. You could have where you have your raw material on top, separated from the stabilized material on the bottom, remove the stabilized material. It could, you know, be multiple containers where you have matter that's in a container and then you skip over and leave it for like a year, and then you come back to it, so it, you know, stabilizes. Bulking agent. Bulking agent seems to be very important for composting toilets to work effectively. And that's just, you know, like wood chips. It's something to add not only more surface area, but also a moisture absorbent to keep the tank to absorb more of the nutrients coming from the urine. And another thing to look at is, I mean, ease of maintenance. You know, there's some tanks out there you have to crawl inside of a large tank to be able to try to do removal. You need easy access to be able to get in, not only to the stabilized material on the bottom to remove, but also to the top. I mean, people throw garbage in these. The greenest people out there, supposedly. Sea kayakers out on Puget Sound. Cypress Island. Talking to the maintenance man. More underwear, dirty underwear, are thrown in the tank out there than anything else. And these are people, you know, sea kayakers, you think pretty green people, you know, they're kind of conscious of what they're doing, but at the same time, no. So you have to be able to easily remove material. Not only garbage, but also your stabilized compost. Alright, so, you know, those are kind of I'd say some of the key things to look at for a composting toilet to evaluate if it might be effective or not. Now, facilities. You know, once you've decided that the composter might be for you, then facilities is something else to look at. Where with facilities, you have to easily maintain. That's a big one. You know, not only do you want to be able to maintain the composter, but you also want to maintain the facility. So, I mean, you know, fiberglass walls that are easy to wash down with water draining out. I mean, it's a turnkey system where everything's provided, so, you know, maintenance is easy. It's very important. And it seems like maybe with a well-maintained system, a pleasant experience, there's going to be less vandalism. And that's also another thing, is, you know, something that's a little more vandal resistant. The vault toilets that the Forest Service loves to use, they're very vandal resistant, but I mean, Who likes that experience? A big one also is a building that's built for the environment. With different environments, different buildings need to be used. If you're in a cold environment, you have to consider that the composting tank, once it drops to like 40 degrees, it's not really going to be very effective. So with a building, you know, insulation, solar heat collection, to be able to keep the composter warm. If you're in a dry desert climate, you might want to look like cement board. Some siding on it that's fire resistant. Like a tropical environment. They're really hard. You have to look into like pressure treated wood, stainless steel fasteners, you know, actually stuff that's built for the environment and be able to last in the environment that you're in. And, you know, a big one also is, you know, the functionality and the longevity of the building. I mean, is it actually going to be able to perform what you want to perform and be able to last? And, you know, some sites, a pit toilet is the appropriate thing. Not used very much, it's very remote, you know, your maintenance probably is not going to be there like it should be. Pit toilet might be the answer. So, as with anything out there, any decision, there's pros and cons, pluses and minuses. Composting toilet is not always the most ideal facility. If you live in an area or you want to put a composter in an area that is prone to vandalism, it's probably not your best bet. Cost, composters can be expensive. They're more fragile, not only in the structure of the facility itself, but these composters, it's not a vault toilet, which is just a holding tank to be pumped and taken to a sewage lagoon. It's actually a living ecosystem that manages the waste. And so it has to be maintained. It needs certain elements. It's like a plant. You have to feed it. You have to love it for it to actually work. And with a public facility, this is kind of where the maintenance personnel really shine, or not. You know, they're the ones that are taking care of it. And if the maintenance folks are really into the composter, it's probably going to work well. But if they're not, it's bound to fail. I mean, there's nothing about it. No, fail. So some other cons for the composting toilet is the number needed. I mean, this kind of goes to the cost also. If a decent sized composter can only handle 100 uses a day, you might need multiple ones. The money skyrockets there, or even just the space, where if you have a vault and it can be pumped out, you don't need as much space. And then the maintenance, I mean, that's the big one. I keep talking maintenance, but you have to have dedicated maintenance people for a composter to actually work right. Now there's many positives as well for a composting toilet. I mean, a big one is the accountability. In the recreation field, it's always talked about user impact. But one of the largest impacts is never talked about. We shit. We need to take care of that. Accountability for the people who visit the area. Sustainability. I mean, a composter is a step in the direction of sustainability. And the right we're going, we need to be sustainable to continue living on this planet. Some more positives for a composting toilet is it can be a very remote site. The waste removal can happen there. And then with waste removal, it can be used for trail maintenance, re-veg, or just return to the land, just put in the woods.